Greetings, opera lovers. Live from Pittsburgh, it's Rona. Last night, the Met live streamed the audio of their first ever production of Roberto Devereux by Donizetti, completing this season's what they call the Three Queens Trilogy. This is a made-up compilation of 3 operas by Donizetti, whose main characters are from the court of England in the 15 and 1600s. And so last night's Roberto Devereux, I believe, was really the most anticipated of the 3. Anna Bolena was put on several years ago, probably as a vehicle for Anna Netrebko. And then we had Maria Stuarda, also by Donizetti, a couple of seasons back, starring Joyce Di Donato. This year, there was the unveiling of Roberto Devereux. And this year, the soprano Sondra Radvanovsky took on the roles of all 3 heroines. Of course, Roberto Devereux's heroine is Elisabetta, the first Queen Elizabeth. For each of these 3 operas, the first time I heard them was on the Prima, the first night broadcast via Sirius Radio or the Met broadcast through my headphones. And each time it was a new experience for me, although I tried to prepare myself by hearing some excerpts. Of the 3 operas, I would say that on a first hearing, Roberto Devereux wins hands down. But I did enjoy the other 2 operas. I will say that as an entire opera, Anna Bolena was the most disappointing, as it seemed to have the most filler music. But I'm not an expert on any of these 3 operas. There was so much hype about the 3 operas, and especially the last one. So was it worth all the hype? I think so. I'm going to make a disclaimer right now. I am not a fan of Miss Radvanovsky in this kind of repertoire. I just don't enjoy her coloratura singing these bel canto roles. But I have to give her credit for what she pulled off last night. It was really a vocal and dramatic tour de force, also a musical tour de force. She's a complete artist. Whether you like the sound of the tone of her voice or not, you have to give her credit for the hard work, the diligent portrayal, everything she did to bring this character to life, which she did over the radio. That is a pretty amazing feat. The part of her voice that I do not enjoy that much is a sort of a harsh quality that she gets when she pushes into her upper range. Of course, I didn't see the opera, and I wasn't in the house. Many people have already chimed in on the internet on what they thought of the opera in print media, either through blogs or perhaps by now the New York Times or other newspapers. So my thoughts are strictly from the electronic media, how it happened, how I heard it through my giant earphones that I love. And I can compare everything equally. So one performance gets compared to another the same way. No, I'm not in the house, but even in the house in different seats, things do sound different. So first we had Alina Garancha coming out as Sarah. She has one of the most beautiful and complete packages in opera today. Her voice is opulent, it's rich and creamy, it sounds young. She has not one vocal flaw that I can think of, and that's pretty good. There is only one small complaint I have of her in general, but last night it wasn't so much in evidence. And that is sometimes I find her singing after a long stretch a little on the bland side. I don't know why. Maybe it's me. But last night she did such an outstanding job. It was just singing at the highest level. Playing her husband, the Duke of Nottingham, was Marius Kviчин. He is a singer I've heard for many years, who several years ago I was really very high on. However, last night he didn't seem to be at his vocal best, as he has not been in the last few seasons. However, as the opera went along, in my opinion, he got better. There were two minor roles that I'd like to mention now. One was Raleigh, played by Christopher Job. I thought he was quite good. And then making his house debut as Lord Cecil was Brian Downen. Now, you've got to say that making your debut in this opera must have been quite nerve-wracking. And I give both singers a lot of kudos for doing as well as they did. In any opera like this, where there's a chorus and obviously an orchestra, we are so lucky to have the Met Opera and Orchestra and Chorus, who are, just in my opinion, of the highest level, and you always expect them to be there, and they were there in their glory. In general, the opera lacked something very special to bel canto operas, and that is what I would call sort of the playing around of the tempi. Sort of, it has to kind of like sort of come and go. It has to be playful but thoughtful. There's just something about a bel canto opera that can't just be, 1, 2, 3, 4 all the time. And it has to sort of surprise you, just as the key changes should surprise you. And that was missing. I don't really know this opera, but I could tell that I didn't feel that in it. And now to the two principals. First, I have to do my little rant on the title of the opera, Roberto Devereux. If this opera were called Opus 60 by Donizetti, would anybody call it Roberto Devereux if they could rename it? I don't think so. I think the opera hinges around Elisabetta. She sings much more than he does, and the opera ends with a very climactic scene for her. And she has a great duet with Roberto. She sings with all the characters in duets herself, whereas Roberto is not on stage nearly as much as she is. Singing Roberto is the absolutely fabulous tenor Matthew Polenzani, who this season already gave one of the greatest performances of the season in The Pearlfishes as Nadir. Nadir's aria is one of the most iconic in all of opera, and to do it in a sterling way makes you a great singer, and that's what he did. Now, he doesn't have an aria that is as well known as Nadir's aria in this opera, but I thought he did a great job. From some people who were in the house, I have already heard that he sounded a little under the weather perhaps, or a little strained at the end. I did not hear that. When he had his big triumphant aria at the end, where he sings the cabaletta and then repeats it all ornamented, I thought it was just absolutely thrilling. I was actually surprised that the applause he got was a little tepid. But that is because I think the audience was just there for Miss Radvanovsky. You could feel it. When she entered, I heard the applause. It was really a wonderful greeting. And after all of her big arias, she got great rounds of ovations. Her technical work was of the highest order. Some of the sounds that she made were not the ones that I would love to hear. There are other sopranos today who can sing this role, whose voices, I think, have more sweetness to them. Hers is in my opinion, is a harsher voice. But it's just me. I still have to take my hat off to her. In terms of the Met putting on this trilogy, kudos to you, because it was a great evening. There was so much hype about this. There were articles on NPR and the New York Times, magazines. This is this great new thing. And you know what? It lived up to the hype. and I hope everybody goes to the HD and sees it. I will try. The HD experience for me has been a little bit hard, as Saturday afternoons are busy and Wednesday evenings are hard. So what can I do? But I love listening to the broadcasts on the radio. It was a wonderful evening, and I would like to make a big shout out to Linda Bruning, who was able to point me in the direction of the libretto, which I followed religiously so that I could enjoy the opera to the fullest. Bye, everyone.